Welcome to Turner Field, the home of the Braves since 1997. Tonight, it's the setting for an early season showdown inside the National League East. In Bobby Cox's final season, the buzz is back in Hotlanta, sparked by a dramatic blast on opening day by baseball's biggest phenom.
And it's a deep drive to right. Way back. Welcome to the big leagues, Jason Hayward.
But tonight brings a huge test for Hayward and his Braves. The fighting Phils and Roy Halladay, the best pitcher in baseball, is rolling through the National League. Tonight, he's on the mound as Eastern powers square off at Turner Field. Welcome to Wednesday Night Baseball, the pregame showcase presented by Captain Morgan. And this evening from Atlanta, the National League favorite Philadelphia Phillies square off against the Atlanta Braves and one of the most talked about rookies in the game in the last several years. The 20-year-old Jason Hayward, he belted a big home run in the Braves' comeback win right here in extra innings last night. Great to have you with us in Atlanta, Georgia, everybody. I'm Dave O'Brien, along with the former National League Cy Young Award winner, Rick Sutcliffe. Hayward is the talk of Atlanta, Suddy. There's no question about that. He's on everybody's lips these days, and a young man coming up with one dramatic hit after another. The sky appears to be the limit for him.
Well, it certainly seems that way here in Atlanta. We know that in spring training, he was widely regarded as the best prospect in all of baseball. Well, after the first 2 weeks of the season, he has not disappointed anyone. It all started on opening day against the Chicago Cubs. In his first official at bat, he goes way deep to thrill the home crowd here in Atlanta. Then all of a sudden, on Sunday, down 3-2 with 2 outs, 2 strikes in the 9th inning, he comes up with a game winner. Look at the energy there out of the 20-year-old kid. After an off night on Monday, last night once again, they were down 3-2. There were 2 outs. He hits a home run in the 9th inning to tie the ball game up. Eventually, they came back to win that. OB, Atlanta needed a spotlight on them. It seems like they've got one.
Well, one of the things that makes tonight particularly exciting is the man that Hayward will be facing, and that is Roy Halladay. You pitched 18 years in the major leagues. You pitched against a lot of great pitchers and with a lot of great guys. I would imagine you have not put many in the same class as you would Roy Halladay.
Well, you certainly wouldn't put anybody in his class over the past 9 years, and the statistics back that up. He has more wins than anybody in all of baseball during that period. He has a higher winning percentage, more complete games, more shutouts. But the key to me is that he has done all of this for a team that never reached the postseason. You put him on a team now that has been to the World Series the past 2 years, OB, this is exactly what the Phillies expected and what we would have expected.
Got a pretty good pitchers duel going here as well. Tim Hudson is his opponent. He goes for Atlanta. You see, he's going for his 150th career win. This is a guy who several years ago won 20 games with the Oakland A's. So we've talked about Hudson, Halladay, and Hayward, but don't forget about the Phillies' 2 sluggers. Chase Utley off to a very fast start, and the always dangerous Ryan Howard. He looms for the Phillies. Wednesday Night Baseball on a beautiful night in Atlanta, and the first pitch is coming right up.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is presented by Captain Morgan. There are captains in every crew. Calling all captains, drink responsibly. And in part by Denny's 2468 value menu. Try 16 different value meals all day, every day. Acura, the most innovative thinking you'll find in an Acura. And Wrangler, for unbeatable comfort and value. You can count on Wrangler 5-star premium denim jeans.
We welcome you back to Wednesday Night Baseball, presented by Captain Morgan and inside Turner Field here in Atlanta. It's great to have you along. Tim Hudson, the right-hander to go for the Braves against right-hander Roy Halladay. And, of course, the man we're talking about coming in is Jason Hayward. That's what everyone's talking about. We wanted to hear from 2 men in particular. Earlier, Sud asking Chipper Jones and Bobby Cox about the rookie standout.
He definitely makes our team better. He was one of the best ball players we had seen in the Grapefruit League all through Florida. We played everybody, and he stood out almost every game, Rick, and he did all the little things well. We're not talking just hitting, but his defense is excellent out there. He can go get the ball. He can steal bases. We haven't got him any yet, but the timing hadn't been right yet, and his instincts are as good as his other abilities.
Most 20-year-old kids, you know, they're loud, they're boisterous, they're cocky. This kid's real level-headed, always willing to learn. Every time, you know, I have a tidbit of information, he's yes sir, no sir, this, that, and the other. Very respectful. There's no doubt that when I ride off into the sunset, he's going to be the guy hitting in the 3-hole. He may be even hitting there before I ride off into the sunset. They may be using me as his protection to try and get him a couple pitches here down the road. But, you know, a lot of people have said, why not move him up in the lineup? He's getting all the big at-bats right now where he's sitting in the 6 or 7 hole. And he's producing, and it makes our lineup turn over. It gives us some offense down at the bottom. The man has already shown that he is more than clutch when it comes down to crunch time.
Well, like Bobby Cox said, he certainly has made them a better team. They sit tied with the Phillies atop the National League East. But I think the real key, as you look at the numbers there and what he's been able to do, is the fact that he's so patient. He's not afraid to have 2 strikes on him. He's not afraid to come up in a big situation. And it's very rare that a young kid like that can slow the game down and be able to succeed.
Maybe 20 years old, but has the mentality of a player who's 30.
Well, and also, when both of your parents graduated from Dartmouth, you're going to be an intelligent kind of guy as well.
Yep, they make as many games as they can. As we take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies starting lineup, it's brought to you by Pizza Hut. Shane Victorino at the top. Of course, Jimmy Rollins is on the DL with an injury. Placido Polanco hitting .397.
Well, the Phillies last year led the National League with 820 runs scored, and they feel like, to a man, they have a better lineup this year. He's the #1 reason.
And it's Utley, Howard, Worth, and Ibanez in that murderer's row for the Phillies. Against Tim Hudson, 1-0 with a .234 ERA. And he's recovered from Tommy John surgery in 2008.
Well, he said he wondered for a long time if he was ever going to be able to pitch again, particularly the way he did when he won 20 games a few years ago. He said he's healthy now, and he's looking forward to the challenge of this Phillies lineup.
I wonder if he's looking forward to facing Ryan Howard, however. Not that many do, but man, has Howard had success against him.
Well, he was saying yesterday that he's kind of excited not to have to face Jimmy Rollins, who we know is still on the disabled list.
Rollins out with a calf strain. So Victorino has taken over the leadoff spot. Shane Victorino at .228, 3 homers, 11 runs batted in. 2-time Gold Glove Award winner from Hawaii. And the first pitch tonight is in there for a called strike. We're underway. Phillies coming in tied for first with Atlanta at 8-5 atop the National League East. But the Phillies have lost 3 in a row. Lost a heartbreaker. They had a 3-0 lead late in last night's game, as that one has popped up in foul ground. Chipper Jones looking for room, lunges but can't get to it, and then a hip right up against that side wall. And Chipper apparently okay.
Not only a hip, but Chipper had to miss a couple of games that they were playing against San Francisco because of an injured oblique. And boy, he did. He hit that thing hard. And you know, Chipper, that might have hurt when Chipper first got to the big leagues, let alone right now at this stage of his career.
Chipper says these days he's going year by year and seeing what the results are. As far as the end of his career in sight, Victorino takes one up high. Phillies losing last night, their first defeat after leading by 3 or more runs in the 9th inning or later since July of 2000 at Yankee Stadium. They were up 3-0. Atlanta came storming back. That man Hayward was right in the middle of it. And McLeod, the center fielder, put it away in the 10th inning with a dramatic solo homer.
That's what is so amazing to me about what the Phillies and Charlie Manuel did a year ago. They got to the World Series basically without a closer.
2-2 chopped off the plate. Hudson has to wait on it, gets it there quickly for the out. And Polanco is up next as we check in with the Atlanta team defensively and in the outfield. That's Melky Cabrera, the former New York Yankee, in left field. McLeod in center, Hayward in right field. He has an above average arm. Chipper Jones at third. Yunel Escobar at shortstop. Martin Prado and Troy Gloss. And Brian McCann behind the plate. Polanco hitting almost 400 in the early days of the season. .397, couple of homers, 12 runs batted in. He played 3.5 seasons with the Phillies before going to the Tigers for the last 4.5 years. And pops that one up. Another one in foul territory. Gloss over near the camera well. Can't quite get to that one. Troy Gloss was booed pretty lustily last night on a couple of occasions, but he had a big hit.
Well, we talked to him before the ball game, and he said he messed up a play. There was a ground ball that was hit to his right. He forgot on the shift with Ryan Howard that Prado was going to be right behind him. The ball caromed off his glove. Utley came in to score. He said, I was out of position, but I'm still learning to play first base.
Also hit into a bases loaded double play. And that one in and hits him. Polanco, you could hear him, I think, on our microphone right on the screen behind home plate as he gave it a Rick, you made more than one hitter go I
caught him right on the elbow. And I mean, I've never been hit by a pitch like that, but I've talked to a lot of people about that, and right now there's absolutely no feeling from the elbow down. You don't feel your fingers. I mean, that seemed to just catch him crispy. He tried to get out of the way. A lot of late movement, a lot of life to that fastball tonight of Tim Hudson.
Well, you knew when you got a guy good when you're pitching, right?
Well, you tried to find a bone. I mean, if you hit him in the muscle, it's not going to do anything.
You try to find a bone?
Well, I mean, if you're trying to move him off the plate or if you're trying to hit him, yeah.
Doesn't sound like the humane thing to do, so.
You're trying to win a ball game.
Understand. Chase Utley here, 347, 6 homers, 14 RBIs. Another quick start for him. That's become tradition for Chase Utley. Runner at first base, and he'll take a ball inside. Utley, of course, had a tremendous World Series against the Yankees, and although the Phillies fell short in the October Classic, he did not. He hit 5 home runs.
Well, he hit 2 home runs in Game 1 and Game 5, the only 2 games they won in that series.
Hudson with the 1-0. A strike, 1-1.
There's so many things that Chase Utley has done for this Phillies team. I mean, as you mentioned, he gets off to a great start every April, but just the tone that he sets, the patience that he has during the at-bats, the leadership, his preparation, watching video before the game, taking the ground balls, the way he goes about BP, it had to have helped Victorino and Jason Worth get their careers going.
1-1 slicer foul. We talk about the hot starts. He did it in 2009 too. He had 20 home runs, 61 RBIs at the All-Star break last year. But this has also become an interesting pattern for Chase. Only 11 home runs, 32 RBIs after the break. In 2008, he hit 25 home runs in the first half, just 8 in the second half. And in 2007, 15 home runs before the break and 7 after the break. So he has been fading in the second half. Clearly he doesn't do it come the World Series. And they've played in 2 in a row. A wave and a miss, and Hudson gets him as that one disappeared at 83.
He threw a sinker away that completely fooled Chase Utley. He was just able to foul it off down the opposite field, and then he comes back with a cut. Look at the tilt to that pitch right there. That tells you that Tim Hudson is healthy again. He's got the not only the strength to be back in his shoulder, but he's got the range of motion, he says, to where he can elevate that release point, creating that late life.
Well, here's Ryan Howard, and this might be the man that Tim Hudson sees when he has nightmares. Howard with 5 home runs off the right-hander, scampering back in Polanco. Big shift on with Prado, the second baseman, playing shallow right field.
Right when you think about being careful with him and pitching around him, the guy in the on-deck circle also hitting .333 in his career off Hudson. There's not a lot of relief in sight.
That's Jason Worth, and then Ibanez after him. In for a called strike. Now, not only has Howard hit 5 home runs off Hudson, he's done that in 2 games. Ryan Howard doing a very good job making contact in 2010. Now, it's very early to draw any conclusions about the whole season, but he is not striking out at the rate that he's been striking out in the past. He cuts and misses, and it's quickly 0-2. But Rick, just 8 strikeouts and 60 at bats for him.
A lot of people talked about all of the weight that he lost last year and how he looks so much better. I don't know that he's lost any more weight, but he looks better and he looks more confident than he has in the past.
Well, putting that 2-strike pitch in play much more frequently. 2 years ago, he struck out 199 times, 186 times last year. That one is by everything on the fly to the backstop, and Polanco will move up on a big league wild pitch.
Trying to pound that fastball in on Ryan Howard, as a lot of people do. You see where Brian McCann was looking there. He just wanted to get everything he possibly could on it, and just his body just kind of drifted out in front of him, leaving his arm and the baseball behind.
So Howard with an RBI opportunity. He's driven in 15. 2 down on the 1-2 pitch. Grounded sharply, but right there, Gloss for the stab, and that will do it. So Hudson a little bit wild, but gets out of that. And when we come back, Roy Halladay toes the slab. He's never gotten off to a 4-0 start. He's trying to do that tonight. Well, just a spectacular night here in Atlanta, Georgia. The Braves are coming up against arguably the finest pitcher in Major League Baseball today, 3-0, Roy Halladay. And a look at the starting lineup for Atlanta, brought to you by Pizza Hut. Nate McLouth was the hero last night. He's in center field, back in the leadoff spot. Prado is red hot, hitting .431, and Chipper Jones at .242, and Brian McCann's the cleanup man.
Well, Bobby Cox's main job is to get Brian McCann his bat into the ball game. You see those 13 walks, 3 of them already have been intentional. Possibly with the 2-run homer from Troy Glaus last night, he may get something to hit.
Well, Halladay has never won his first 4 starts to open a season, but the new ace of the Phillies is perfect at 3-0.
1-0 in his career against Philadelphia. Had a no decision last year when he pitched 7 shutout innings against these Braves.
McLouth hitting .167, goes after the first pitch. A funny bounce for Howard. He gets there to the bag in time. And on one offering, McLouth is retired. Defensively now, here's how they back up Halladay. In the outfield, it's Ibanez in left, Victorino in center, Jason Worth with a good arm there in right field.
All 3 All-Stars a year ago.
Polanco has won a couple of Gold Gloves. He's in third. Castro at short. Utley and Howard man the right side. And Ruiz has had a lot of trouble throwing out base stealers. That could get interesting tonight if Atlanta gets their quick guys on.
Yeah, but the opponents, exactly right, have had a lot of trouble getting people on against Roy Halladay.
Martin Prado, the second baseman, at .431, a homer, 3 runs batted in. And Prado, one of the 5 homegrown everyday players in the Braves lineup. He has been lost a little bit, Sut, in the glare of Hayward's star, but he entered the week hitting .462. And Brian McCann says, I think he'll win a batting title someday.
I asked Chipper Jones before the game yesterday about Prado, and where did he come from? He says, you know what? He's gotten a little bit better every year, and he's gotten to the point now where he's bigger and he's stronger and he's become a force.
Pokes that one foul, 2-2. When he first came to the big leagues, the thought was that he was probably going to be a real good utility man.
And he was kind of convinced that that was what was going to happen. Play all over the infield.
But as he continues to hit, and tonight facing one of the greats in the game, his confidence has gone up. He checked his swing, or did he? Yes, he did, according to Ted Barrett. And a count now 3-2.
I got a feeling that offensively we need to talk about both of these teams early tonight, because you're seeing a lot of swings or half swings just like that. Well, when Halladay and Hudson are on their game, they're a handful.
Chopper gently hit. Polanco across the diamond to get him. As we check in now, Cindy Brunson in the studio. Cindy.
Thanks so much, Dave. Leading off with these Baseball Tonight updates in studio, we're going to check in on the Giants and the Padres. In the bottom of the first inning, Adrian Gonzalez steps in and takes Todd Wellemeyer for a ride. Wellemeyer with his 5th home run surrender this season. Gonzalez with his 3rd jack on the year. Dave, Rick, back to you.
Cindy, thank you very much. There are a lot of teams who would love to get their hands on that young slugger. And at some point this season, will he be available come the trade deadline? Well, here's Chipper Jones. 242, 2 home runs for the veteran switch hitter. Batting left-handed tonight. Chipper will turn 38 on Saturday. Major league star since he broke in 1993. Knocks that one foul, and Suddy says after 2,400 hits and 428 homers, he's on a year-to-year basis with his contract.
I think what's remarkable as we look at the career home runs that he has hit as a switch hitter is the fact that he's hit over 300 in his career. And we've seen a lot of guys who are much better from one side than the other. They don't have the consistency that this guy has been able to put together in his great career.
Of course, he's won an MVP as well. Won a batting title, swing and a miss for strike 3. Halladay makes very quick work of Chipper Jones. So he is off to a roaring start tonight here in Atlanta. Hudson takes to the mound in a moment. 0-0 after 1. Tim Hudson with a career record of 149 and 78. But I mean, even hardcore baseball fans may have lost track of Hudson, man who won 20 games for the Oakland A's years ago because of his Tommy John surgery. And since he was acquired from Oakland before the 05 season, he's really only had one outstanding season in Atlanta. That was 07 when he went 16-10 with a 333 earned run average. Trying to get back to that form. Here's Jason Worth to lead off the second. 0-0 Phillies and the Braves.
Really kind of interesting to me that in 2000 when he won 20 games, that was the only time in his career that he's been an all-star.
Not a big guy, listed at 6'1". And about 175 pounds. So slight of build. Kind of reminds you of Tom Glavine in that respect. A right-handed Tom Glavine.
Throws a little bit harder. Uses the changeup a lot.
From Columbus, Georgia. There's a swing and a deep drive. Sock to left. Racing back Cabrera, turning around, and it's off the wall. Worth is heading in for second base. He wants the double. He'll slide in ahead of the throw. And he narrowly missed a home run, which would have been his second of the year. And he knows it.
He has completely turned everything around in his career. Thought to be a platoon player. They only thought that he could handle left-handed pitching. He just had one right up around his chin on the previous pitch from Hudson. He did not care whatsoever. Gets right back in there. He gets a ball up and out over the plate and already into scoring position with nobody out.
He's saying in Philly, that's gone. I'm touching them all. Here's Raul Ibanez trying to pick him up. Chilly start for Raul at 186 and no home runs. Fastball in there for a strike. Ibanez was an all-star last year, but last year he started quickly in his first year in Philadelphia. He had 51 RBIs in the team's first 50 games. Went on to hit 34 homers, 93 runs batted in. Although he was slowed in the second half by injuries, he looks at another strike.
A lot of his teammates were saying before the game, though, that you can't tell the difference between him right now and the guy that was hitting 330. Still has that preparation and still very businesslike.
Phillies trying to get on the board first tonight here in Atlanta. Worth at second. Slicer foul.
Kind of funny to think about Ibanez and Jason Worth, both of them in the All-Star game last year as outfielders. Both of them started their careers as catchers. How about that?
And Worth still has a terrific throwing arm.
And he can run.
And he can run.
20 stolen bases a year ago. If Ibanez is not able to advance him, he'll be looking to steal third.
Too high. Ibanez stays away from that. Juan Castro on deck. Now, the lineup certainly eases up in the bottom third. Of course, you have the pitcher batting ninth, although Halladay's done all right with the stick, at least early this year. He's 3 hits.
He's got 3 singles.
He's hitting 273. He can brag on that all night.
In his career, he does not have a double, a triple, a homer, or a walk.
Oh, he was awful in Toronto. He had 3 hits all those years in Toronto with 17 strikeouts and 38 at-bats. But, hey, you know, now that he's getting regular rips.
And he'll get better at it.
Yeah.
You know he'll work at it.
2 balls, 2 strikes on Ibanez, who has hit Hudson pretty well in the past. 317 lifetime with a homer.
Hudson's really fighting himself to get the ball down after the first couple of hitters in that first inning.
Fouled away again by Raul Ibanez.
You know, he knows he's up against Roy Halladay, and he's not probably going to have very many runs to work with, and he's really getting long with his stride. You watch his landing foot, it's coming down a lot harder than it needs to be when he pitches down in the zone, and he's more effective. Feels good. The shoulder strength is back. The velocity's there, but he's got to slow things down to get his location.
The 2-2 again. That one ripped into right center field, headed deep toward the wall. On the run, Hayward and McLeod. That takes a bounce, and it's up and over that wall. A huge hop there by Ibanez. And he is able to drive in that run. So the Phillies strike first tonight on back-to-back doubles.
This is a changeup right here that he wants to have down below the K zone. You take a look at it over the heart of the plate, right at the bottom of the K zone there, but right at the knees. You got a guy with 2 strikes. He's been struggling, and what do? Basically at 83 miles an hour. That's a BP fastball that Hudson laid in there.
Pretty fortunate that both of those were not hit over the wall.
Both of them, as you mentioned, would have been gone in another ballpark.
Here's Castro. The shortstop, Juan Castro, hitting 320, indicating bunt, but takes a strike. Chipper Jones ready to hold there at third. Gloss was charging from first base. Castro, the number 7 hitter. So Hudson has already hit a batter, uncorked a wild pitch, and allowed 2 long doubles to the Phillies. And that's up and in. 1 ball and 1 strike. His command, it is not there yet tonight.
One thing we've learned about Charlie Manuel over the years, this is his 6th year managing the Phillies. He's always got a plan B. I mean, he knew what he would do if Jimmy Rollins went down. You lose a lot defensively, you lose some offense, but you've got yourself a big league ball player and a guy that knows how to play the game and that can make the routine plays. He's got a plan for each and every one of his players to give them an opportunity to win.
Charlie guiding the Phillies to the 2008 World Series championship and to a 2nd straight National League pennant in 2009.
He told them all in spring training, he said, we got a chance. We got a chance to do something special. Head back to the World Series for 3 straight years.
And with Halladay on board now, that one way wide. No question they're an improved ball club.
Last time that happened in the National League was the St. Louis Cardinals, 1942 to 44. So it is something special that Charlie talked about.
Well, they've become the model franchise of the National League, certainly. Poke foul again by Castro. A bit of a challenge. It is hard to get back. Last 5 World Series runners up. What they've done the following season. Houston, Detroit, Colorado, Tigers. What about the Phillies? 8-5 right now. Trying to snap a 3-game losing skid here in April. Ibanez at second, and that one will dip down low.
You know, a lot of those teams, though, looking back on it, OB, a lot of them stayed kind of pat. They liked what they had, and they thought it was enough to go out and win again. Ruben Amaro Jr., the general manager of the Phillies, did not do that. I mean, he liked what he had, but he added Polanco, he added Roy Halladay.
A couple of those teams got old all of a sudden. Ground ball toward the hole, and that'll sneak through for a base hit. Ibanez into third. He'll stop there. So that is 3 consecutive hits off of Tim Hudson. As Castro comes up in front of Carlos Ruiz and delivers the single. And is safely on at the corners. Again, nobody out.
That's a great at bat on the part of Juan Castro. He was battling. He tried to advance the runner by hitting behind him. He wasn't able to do that. Once he got 2 strikes, he just tried to put the ball in play. If you're Tim Hudson, you feel a little bit better in the fact that that's the first guy this inning that's hit the ball on the ground. That's a key. When you're, as Bobby Cox and pitching coach Roger McDowell, as they're watching Tim Hudson, if he's not getting ground balls, he's in trouble.
Ruiz at 258, no homers, a couple of runs batted in. Certainly a double play candidate, and having a lot of throwing issues. He's only caught 19.7%. That was last year trying to steal, having the same problems this year. And that has become a point of contention for Philadelphia. Although Rich Doobie, their pitching coach, will tell you a lot of those stolen bases have come on the middle relief guys or the relief corps in general. And Rich says some guys just don't pay enough attention to base runners.
Well, the Phillies haven't had near the problems that the Red Sox did last night, have they?
Red Sox allowed 9 stolen bases to the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
And Boston somehow managed to win that game. But that was a club record for Texas. 9 thefts. By the end of the 3rd inning, they had already stolen 6 bases. So they were running wild. 1st and 3rd, and the 1-1 pitch. High fly into right field. Hayward coming in a bit, taps the mitt. Ibanez tagging up and now heads on back to 3rd base. A fine throw cut off by Gloss. And the young man can do no wrong as he got it in quickly.
It doesn't show up in the box score, but for the Atlanta Braves and their fans, very appreciative of the fact that Jason Hayward right now has 1 RBI on the night, at least to this point right now, because of his arm strength. Look at how he sets up. He gets in place, and then he comes in, and what I love about it is that he hit the cutoff man, making sure that the runner at first couldn't get to second base, and also because of the strength, the runner at third couldn't score.
So 1 out, and here's Halladay, that hitting machine. He's 3 for 11, 273. He's indicating bunt and drops it foul for strike 1. Of course, not called on to do very much of this in his years with the Toronto Blue Jays. 2003 American League Cy Young Award winner, now 32 years old. He's been selected to 6 All-Star teams.
Started the All-Star game a year ago in St. Louis for the American League.
Yeah, how about that? Could very well do it again. Only for the National League this year with the start he's off to. Meanwhile, Hudson is scuffling, about to throw his 22nd pitch. Shane Victorino on deck. Ibanez at 3rd, Castro at 1st. And the count moves to 0-2. Not the most confident swing in the world. Hudson could really use a strikeout right here. It would be his 2nd.
Well, if he doesn't get it, you've got to be a little bit concerned about Tim Hudson. Seemed like he settled down a little bit when he got the ground ball. Was able to get the out with the catcher.
Off the corner, says Tony Randazzo, and the count 1-2. Halladay for so long noted as maybe the hardest working pitcher in the American League, if not all of baseball. Many have tried to keep up with him in his offseason training regimen, only to fall after a few hours. Swung on and missed for strike 3. Let's check in now. Red Sox update with Cindy Brunson in the studio. Cindy.
Thanks. Baseball Tonight update presented by our friends at Toro. Rangers, Red Sox. Top 1, Vladimir Guerrero with 1 aboard, his 2nd double of the season. Rangers on top of Josh Beckett and company 3-0 at the Fens in the 2nd. Guys, back to you.
Well, it's been a real pattern for the Red Sox, Rick, falling behind early and unable to recover. They won a big one last night, but that's their ace on the mound, Josh Beckett.
They got swept handily by Tampa.
Victorino in there taking a strike. If you have not seen the Tampa Bay Rays, wait till you get a look at that team. Speed and power. Their pitching has been outstanding. The back end of their bullpen is vastly improved now. With Soriano closing games, guys are healthy, and that is a very confident ball club.
Well, people talk about their rotation, and it can't match that of the Yankees and the Red Sox. You know what? It's not as proven as the Yankees and Red Sox, but it's every bit as talented. Garza off to a great start. David Price, we thought he might be the key to the American League East this year.
And Neiman and Wade Davis have been nice surprises. A cut and a miss there by Victorino. So Hudson muscling up.
Just thinking about Jason Hayward right now and that arm strength that he had out there that kept the second run from scoring, giving Hudson an opportunity to keep this as a one-run ball game.
1-0 Phillies. Hudson trying to frustrate them, however, here. Swinging a looper toward left center. McLeod coming on. Slides and he makes the catch. Well, that's a Gold Glovers play, and he's already won one in his career. And indeed go back to Hayward's throw, and their outfield had a tremendous inning for the Atlanta Braves. Nate McLeod did it with the bat last night with a game-winning homer in the 10th inning. Here helping out Tim Hudson with a fine sliding catch. Young Jason Hayward rifling through a whole pile of batting gloves. What's he looking for, son?
A pair with a hit in them.
Well, let's go back to opening day in a moment filled with symbolism. Jason Hayward catching Hank Aaron's opening day first pitch. And the 76-year-old Aaron throwing to the 20-year-old Hayward and told him afterward, have fun. And this is where he said it. You are ready to do this. He whispered in his ear.
Wow.
In there for a strike on Brian McCann. Hayward will hit after Troy Gloss, who follows McCann.
I mean, first of all, to have Mr. Aaron come out to the ballpark and do that. Second of all, for the young outfielder to be the one selected.
McCann backs away. He's hitting .286, a pair of home runs, 6 driven in. He's faced Roy Halladay twice, and he has 2 hits off him. See McCann, another Georgia product. High chop. Halladay, plenty of time to get it there with the catcher running for the out, and Roy Halladay has set down the first 4 tonight. That'll bring up Troy Gloss. And Gloss heard a lot of boos from the Atlanta crowd when he hit into a bases loaded double play earlier in the game last night. Then he would belt a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th inning to turn those boos into cheers before Jason Hayward tied it with a solo shot, sent it to the 10th inning. And McLeod won it in the 10th with a home run of his own. So for the moment he has them on his side, but it's been a cold start for Gloss, hitting .200.
You could kind of expect that. I mean, this guy's gone through a lot of adjustments this year. I mean, only played, what, 15, 20 games a year ago with St. Louis, learning a new position.
Socks that one high and deep to center. Victorino and his horse to the track, to the wall, and leaps up, and he caught it! He caught the ball! What a play by Shane Victorino! Even Halladay can't believe it. He robs Troy Gloss at the center field wall here in Atlanta, and he wants to get a look at it. Why not, Shane?
There are 2 guys out there on that baseball field that very rarely show emotion. Roy Halladay and Chase Utley. Both of them reacted. They could not believe that he got to the wall, that he went up over it and brought back what would have been the tying run.
He steals a home run, and it's fouled back by Hayward. We'll give you another look.
Boy, right when we thought Nate McLeod made a great play to end the top of the 2nd inning. This one's even better. Get ready, Ravi. We've got a web gem coming for you.
Hayward, however, has hit 4 over the wall as he knocks a foul off to the left. The youngster who was born the summer before Bobby Cox began this 21-year run as Braves manager seems to eat up pressure. On Sunday, he beat Colorado with a bases loaded 2-run single in the bottom of the 9th with 2 out. Last night, a solo home run tying the game with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th. And on opening day here against the Cubs, all eyes on him, and he homered in his first major league plate appearance.
Both of those 9th inning hits, they were both off the opposing team's closers. It's not like you're hitting it in the 6th inning off a setup, man, or, you know, a guy just getting to the big leagues. It's the best they have to offer, and he was better.
Takes that one in there for strike 3. His first encounter with Roy Halladay ends in a strikeout of Jason Hayward. And Halladay, with a lot of help from Shane Victorino, a spectacular catch, has retired 6 in a row. Well, it is 1-0 Philadelphia, but it ought to be tied if not for the heroics of Shane Victorino bringing what looked to be a home run ball back over the fence from Troy Gloss. And Sut, in order to hit it there, you have to really hit it where he caught that ball in Atlanta.
It's still cool here. The ball's not carrying. One of the bigger ballparks in baseball, a lot bigger than the old ballpark down here in Atlanta. Troy Glaus has got to be thinking this place was not built for me.
I was thinking maybe a trade is in order. Get me out of this building.
Well, I'm
for a
sure
strike.
With him being healthy, I'm sure at some point he wants to play third again.
Yeah.
And
Over at
he's
first base now.
He's not going to play third for the Braves for at least this year and 2 more.
Placido Polanco is hit by a pitch on the elbow in the first inning as he bats here in the top of the 3rd. Right back to the mound, and Hudson with a backhand and gets him. These 2 pitchers, Halladay and Hudson, have met before. April 25, 2000, Toronto at Oakland. Hudson went 7 en route to one of his 20 wins, but Halladay gave up 9 earned runs in 4 innings. His ERA went to 10.80. It would be a 10.64 by season's end, a performance that would send him back to Single-A the following year.
Well, one thing you could tell the big difference was Roy Halladay back then was right over the top with his release point, and that was not going to work for him. He had all kinds of problems, went back to the minor leagues. A minor league pitching coach named Mel Queen lowered his arm angle, created more movement, and created Roy Halladay.
Chase Utley taking one up high for a ball. He struck out in the first inning. And he is just 8 for 37 against Hudson.
That's just the 3rd strikeout of the year for Tim Hudson. He didn't have any in his last start. Told me he was pitching to contact and then started laughing.
1-0 rocketed, and a fair ball down the right field line just inside the chalk and into the corner. Utley digging for 2. Hayward gets to it, and he'll settle for the double. So bullet by Utley right in front of Ryan Howard.
One thing you know about Chase Utley, with only 1 out, he's thinking about a triple. He's going to do everything he can if there's a bobble of any kind. Again, another ball hit in the air. He's not able to get down below that K zone. It goes down into the corner, but the key here is not only does Hayward get to it quickly, but he hits the cutoff man right in the chest with a perfect throw. That's kind of become a lost art. I mean, having the arm strength to do that, but executing it perfectly keeps the runner from getting to third base.
Well, how about this now? Ryan Howard in the 3rd inning of a 1-0 game will be intentionally walked. First base is open, and they're going to fill it with Howard on the free pass.
This is something that must have been discussed before the ball game. Anytime we have an opportunity to pitch around Ryan Howard, we're going to do it, no matter if Jason Worth lined the ball in the gap off the wall in his first at bat.
Well, this might be a big reason why. September 18, 2009, Howard homering twice off of Tim Hudson. That's nothing new. He's homered 5 times off the right-hander, most by any active player against Hudson.
Well, it's one of those things, Obi, where you've got to be honest with your manager and your team. You've got to tell him, you know, right now I don't have an answer for him. I think I can get the next guy out. That's when, as a manager, you put your neck on the line by making this move.
Well, Howard hit 3 home runs off of Hudson in a game in 2006. So absolutely owns him. Here's Jason Worth. Atlanta looking for a double play ball here. And chopped to Chipper Jones, and a foul ball. It's a foul ball called by the third base umpire, Paul Nowert. The fans, many of them anyway, on the first base side, thought that was a double play to end the inning. And now they will boo Nowert, but his call was quick and decisive.
You kind of wonder about Bobby Cox. He's been ejected more than any other manager in the history of baseball. He's got a real good look at this, though, and he could see that Chipper backhanded. The ball got to the bag, which makes it the third base umpire's call as opposed to the home plate umpire. There it is, right even with the bag. He makes the call. To me, it looks like he got the, he got the call correct, or Bobby Cox would still be out there.
Yeah. Bobby can relax on this one. Future Hall of Famer, who will go into Cooperstown with more ejections than anybody.
And he will go in.
Sure will. Worth ripped a double first time up, slices that one fouled on the right field line. Now the Phillies are getting some pretty good cuts off of Tim Hudson. They've already doubled 3 times.
Well, and they had the pitch count up to 44 after just 2 innings. Roy Halladay with less than half of that through his 2 innings of work.
Well, now it's 55 pitches for Hudson.
I saw this same story last night with Hanson on the mound.
Utley at second, Howard at first after the intentional pass. 1 ball and 2 strikes on a dangerous Worth, who hit 36 home runs, 99 RBIs last season.
Hudson going up top with that fastball on purpose with the count 0-2. I wonder if he's trying to set up the curveball that he used to strike out Roy Halladay when he needed an out.
The 1-2 dipping low, 2 balls 2 strikes.
As long as he's down there, he's got a chance. It's when he's up above the knees, between the knees and the belt, that he's going to get hurt. And he knows that. I mean, he just seems a little bit excited right now. His command is not real good. I mean, he didn't mean to hit Polanco. That tells you how far his location is off.
In dire need of a ground ball right at somebody instead of liner foul. Hudson now 34 years old, from Columbus, Georgia. The Braves have a high number of players who were born in this state, wound up playing Little League and high school ball right here in Georgia, like Brian McCann. Hayward actually played his high school ball in the state of Georgia, even though he was born in New Jersey.
You know, and you saying that about Brian McCann made me think about Jeff Francoeur, who, when he first got to the big leagues, was, you know, the same kind of hype that Jason Hayward has come up with. It didn't work out for Jeff here in Atlanta, but it seems to be working out up in New York.
The 2-2 again to Worth. Waved at and missed, and he got him. He strikes him out. Big K there for Hudson.
I think what Brian McCann told Tim Hudson here is that your command stinks right now. Why don't you just rear back and throw it as hard as you possibly can? That's all he does. It's on the outside corner. The ball was still elevated, but that was at 92 miles an hour.
Our K-Zone brought to you by Denny's. Well, here's Ibanez trying to salvage something in the inning. Utley still out there in scoring position. Ibanez has an RBI double already, and he'll take ball 1. We talked about Ibanez's quick start last year as opposed to this season. His first 5 weeks of 2009, he was hitting .368 for the Phillies. On his way to an all-star appearance. Bounded over the hill. Charged by Escobar. Down to get it on the move. Got him. Nicely done by the shortstop. And Hudson pitches into difficulty and gets around it. So the intentional pass of Howard really paid off. And Halladay's back to work. Back at Turner Field, some of the retired numbers high above left field. It is 1-0 Philadelphia. Although a home run has been stolen by Shane Victorino. He took one away from Troy Gloss, making a tremendous leaping catch up against the center field wall. And so Roy Halladay continues to lead it by a run. Here's Yunel Escobar, 27-year-old shortstop from Cuba. And he'll be followed by Melky Cabrera, the former Yankee. And then Tim Hudson will swing the bat. Braves were no hit on Saturday night by Colorado's Ubaldo Jimenez. And they've bounced back to win 2 in a row since then. Now 8-5. And tie with the Phillies, rattled foul by Escobar.
That was a no-hitter saving catch by Shane Victorino thus far. And there's not been a whole lot of offense for Bobby Cox and the next three guys coming up here in the early part of this season.
1-2 will miss. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Here's one thing too, watching Halladay. I mean, just the big difference, and he really sets the tone of the ball game with the pace that he has out there delivering.
He's gone full in 26 innings now. He has struck out 23 batters. He's only walked 2 men. Escobar is struck out. He will take a seat. He's caught looking. Let's check in now. Cindy Brunson in the studio. Cindy.
Thanks so much. This Baseball Tonight update featuring the Cubs and the Mets. Top 1. Ike Davis, the 23-year-old first baseman phenom. How about a web gem? The guys will be talking about it on Baseball Tonight after your game. Dave, Rick, back to you.
All right, Cindy, thank you very much. Busted bat, ground ball to short by Cabrera. Dug out by Castro, and on the move smoothly throws him out. 2 up and 2 down as Cabrera's bat shattered. Rolling out to short. So it has the makings of a very quick inning for Halladay, the pitcher, coming up next in Tim Hudson. Now, last night here in Atlanta, they drew just 18,032. That was their smallest home crowd of the season.
It didn't seem like there was that many people here.
And surprising given the opponent, that it was the front-running Phillies and the National League's class team.
Playing for first place, so be it early in the year. I'm used to seeing this ballpark packed with, you know, the Maddixes and the Smoltz and the Glavins on the mound.
Well, certainly more than this. 1 ball and 1 strike, and they have a very interesting ball club. And certainly Jason Hayward throughout the summer is going to sell a lot of tickets. That one foul tipped into the mitt.
Well, and a chance to win every night with the starting rotation that they put together. They've added Billy Wagner and Saito to the bullpen. There's depth down there. This team has a chance.
Good bench as well for Bobby Cox. The breaking ball is high. Of course, no one comes to see a manager manage, but it is Bobby Cox's last season, and it has been such a phenomenal run. Swing and a miss, and Hudson is retired. 2 strikeouts in that inning for Halladay, and he has struck out 4. And so far, Atlanta without a hit.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball, presented by Captain Morgan, is brought to you by One A Day Men's, the official multivitamin of MLB, specially formulated for men. And Wendy's, you know when it's real.
Really pretty night here in Atlanta. Temperature down into the 60s. It was a beautiful sunny day here in Georgia. Juan Castro takes a strike from Tim Hudson. Could be a lot worse for Tim Hudson. It's only trailing 1-0. In the first inning, though, he hit Polanco and wild pitched him down to second. He didn't score. Gave up 3 hits, only 1 run, though, in the second inning. That has popped up and will twist foul on a play.
Yeah, but the problem is it's doubtful Tim Hudson's going to get his second at bat tonight.
Yeah, that pitch count's getting up.
And it's the same story that Bobby Cox had to deal with last night.
Probably 4th on the all-time wins list with over 2,400. And now in his 25th season managing the Atlanta Braves. 29th season overall as a major league manager. Knocked right to Prado, who will throw him out. Castro done in 4-3. Major League Baseball continues on ESPN this Sunday and Monday. First at 8 o'clock Eastern, Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. These Braves heading to Citi Field to take on the New York Mets. Then at 7 Eastern on Monday Night Baseball presented by Sears Lawn and Garden. You'll see the Mets again as they host Manny Ramirez and the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's Major League Baseball on ESPN at ESPN3.com this Sunday and Monday. Here's Carlos Ruiz, the catcher, 0 for 1 with a fly to right. And Roy Halladay, who so far is not allowed a base runner, the on-deck hitter. Another high chop. We've seen several of those. Prado waits for the bounce and slings it over to get Ruiz, who does not run very well.
You just called Roy Halladay the undecked hitter, didn't you?
I did. I said it out loud.
Okay.
And
All
I'm
right.
sure he would appreciate it. And you could swing the shillelagh a little bit when you.
Well, you know what? I came up in the National League, and truly it was part of the game, and you worked hard at it, particularly in spring training. I mean, you were constantly down there trying to get the bunt down, and you would even eventually bring the hitting coach down there to try to work on putting the ball in play and occasionally getting a base hit. Roy Halladay will improve at that.
He struck out in the second inning, 0 for 1. If he does reach, Shane Victorino will follow him. And of course, the Phillies going without Jimmy Rollins, at least for a while, with that calf injury. You want he rehabs and tries to get back in that lineup.
You want to bet that he's going to reach base or not? Is that what?
I'm not going to put any
well, I mean,
kind of a bet.
You called him a hitter, and you're talking about the guy on deck.
You know, a really fine hitter fails 7 out of every 10 times, Rick.
Well, that's not the case with Prado so far this year.
It sure isn't.
Polanco.
Nope. This guy's off to tremendous starts. Well, how about this? The count has gone to 3-1. I think my odds have improved dramatically.
They have, and it just shows you the lack of command and how Hudson, once again, as he was in his last start, is just all over the place. Look at him, he almost fell down there.
That brings a big grin on his face, but you're right, he almost tumbled.
He is having all kinds of trouble. We talked about it earlier in the ball game with his landing foot. You see right there, he landed on his heel and it spun out and just gave out on him. He's getting way too far out there. He tries to shorten up a little bit, but when he does, he almost falls down.
Waved at and missed for strike 3.
Who's on deck? I forgot.
Well, it's Victorino to start the next inning. All right, you win again. Halladay heading back to the hill. That's something he does really well. Well, Atlanta's still looking for their first hit against Roy Halladay. They got a big one from this man last night, Nate McLeod. He needed one, too. Had been in a long slump. That was the 10th inning. A solo drive. Game was tied 3-3, and now it's 4-3, a win for Atlanta. His teammates weren't there at home plate, but they were gathered in the tunnel. They deked him out. And then they had the celebration a little belatedly. He loved every minute of it.
Imagine when he came around third base expecting everybody to be there waiting on him.
Nobody there, not a soul.
He actually said that he and Brian McCann thought that up last year.
Fly ball. Here's Victorino on the move, coming in, makes the catch. One man out in the 4th inning.
Let's talk about winning baseball, and you got to start with Roy Halladay on the mound. Take a look at how he repeats his delivery. Look on the left what he does to David Ortiz. Look at the catcher's glove. Look at the release point, exactly the same. But watch the late movement on that pitch. Here's a sinking fastball on the other side to Kevin Youkilis. Look at the release points, exactly the same. Look at the results, exactly the same, but different movement to both pitches. Watch this sinker come back and catch the corner. You just don't know a lot of times when to swing and when not to because of his delivery.
Martin Prado will take that pitch a little bit low. He's 0 for 1 with a grounder to third base. No Brave has gotten as far as first base yet against the 32-year-old from Denver.
You just think about the last inning when Escobar leading off took a cut fastball right down the middle. You go, I mean, he couldn't have walked it down the middle any more than that, but it was the movement that he wasn't ready for.
And then bailing there and inside 2-1. For the last 2 seasons with the Blue Jays, Roy's ERA 2.78 and 2.79. And tossing 18 complete games over those 2 seasons.
Well, and he does it basically with the same pitch. We've talked many times about the finger being the ocean, the baseball, the body of water. What makes a ship on the ocean move? The rudder. Your rudder. It's his thumb movement, and it's the part of his finger that he uses to push a doorbell that is what creates that release point. There was a sinker right there. He uses the index finger. On the cutter, he'll use his middle finger to try to get that movement in the opposite direction. But it's repeating his delivery. Look at the release point every time. It looks like as it comes out, it's going to be exactly the same pitch, but it can be any one of 3 pitches. It can be a sinker, a cutter, or he can throw another finger up there on the grip and create the changeup.
Chipper Jones trying to break him up here, but he falls behind 0-1. Halladay is absolutely dealing. First pitch strikes to 10 of 12 batters. Ruiz has been able to sit back there like he's on a lazy boy and take these pitches right along the corner, set up that mitt. Halladay puts it right there. Here's a swing and a shot. That's a gapper. Deep left center, all the way back to the wall on one hop. And Chipper Jones has a double, and he becomes the first man to get on tonight against Roy Halladay with 2 down in the 4th inning.
Well, Chipper Jones has been doing this for a long time. To me, he went up there looking for something off speed. He made up his mind he was going to stay back. Looks like it was just kind of a cut fastball trying to paint the outside corner. Only 80 miles an hour. Didn't really have the sharp tilt to it. But credit's got to go to Chipper. Looking out over the plate. He had his mind made up to go in that direction. And he almost tied this ball game up.
He's always hit Philadelphia particularly well. .339 in his career with 43 homers. Of course, that didn't include Roy Halladay until this season. Is Brian McCann. He's 0 for 1 with a comebacker.
This is a big point in the ball game right here.
Well, 2 down. Chipper at second, and he backs him away. 1 ball, 1 strike.
You and I have talked many times when you're being careful with a guy, not so much pitching around him. In your mind, the count is 0-2 on every pitch. I would imagine that's what Roy Halladay is thinking right now.
Braves pretty good with runners in scoring position at 281. He just got a piece of that. Foul tipped it into the mid. 1-2. McCann's cans.
They look like they're a long ways away.
A long way away in the cheap seats. Waved at and missed. That was nasty. A terrific change at 84 miles an hour. So Atlanta gets a base runner, but nothing comes to the double from Chipper Jones. And it is still 1-0 Philadelphia. Wonderful night for baseball here in Atlanta. Top half of the 5th. 1-0 Phillies. And it'll be Shane Victorino who has robbed a home run on behalf of that man. Roy Halladay refueling.
Had a man on base that inning. A tough inning.
That's right. Finally, they got a guy on, and Chipper Jones doubled, but was stranded at second. Victorino has grounded back to the pitcher. He's also been denied a hit himself on a fine play by Nate McLouth, who's a Gold Glover in his own right. Of course, Victorino's won the last 2 Gold Gloves.
We were talking between innings. Charlie Manuel's actually had the last 3 Gold Gloves, 1 for him in center field. Of course, Aaron Rowan.
Victorino has handled Hudson well in the past, a .320 average and 2 homers against the right-hander. He'll be followed by Polanco and then Utley. The only player in the majors last season with 10 or more doubles, triples, homers, and stolen bases. So much of Shane's game is based on speed. He was late on that one as he strikes out as we go back to the studio for an update. And Cindy Brunson.
Thanks so much. It's Baseball Tonight update presented by Arby's. Rangers Red Sox bottom 3. They're loaded for J.D. Drew, and he unloads his 5th career grand slam. Comes off Matt Harrison. Boston up 5-4 now in the top of the 4th at the Fens. Guys, back to you.
Wow, and that's a guy who has been a co-leader in strikeouts in the American League the last several days. Off to a terrible start, but he blasts a grand slam at Fenway. Really needed that one. Here's Polanco. He's been hit by a pitch and grounded to the pitcher. Placido Polanco, an ultimate contact guy, one of the most difficult strikeouts in the game. The last 4 full seasons he played in Detroit, including last year, he struck out 27 times, 30 times, 43 times, and 46 times. Right to Gloss for an easy stab, and 2 up and 2 down in the 5th.
Well, the thing about Polanco is that he knows what he brings to an offense, and he knows what he brings to a team. He was, again, kind of the perfect piece to the puzzle for the Philadelphia Phillies. You don't lose anything defensively. Pedro Feliz was as good as it got. But you know what? Polanco's right there with him. Plus, you get a lot more contact, more runs scored.
Do a lot of things with him. Bunting, he can hit and run in that spot.
That pitch count, he's a big part of the reason tonight. He's already been on base.
Chase Utley 1 for 2 with a double and a strikeout. And takes the ball from Hudson. Nobody on base, 2 out.
Watching Chase Utley reminds me so much of Ryne Sandberg with the Cubs, of course, the Hall of Famer. Very rarely will he swing at the first pitch of any at bat. Maybe with the bases loaded in the first or second game of a series, he might do it. But in that third game of a series where he set everybody up, constantly taking the first pitch, take, that's when he jumps on you.
You got the impression during the World Series against the Yankees that he was out thinking members of their pitching staff over and over and hitting those 5 home runs.
Well, Sabathia was dominant throughout the whole year, including the postseason, but Chase Utley found a way to do some damage off the Yankees' big left-hander.
Utley with 6 home runs already. Takes a strike. 2-1.
Kind of, thinking about Ryan Howard too, and how we've talked about Ryan all the time, how his defense has improved. Chase right there with him. You don't even talk about Chase Utley's defense anymore. He's gotten so much better.
Trying to reach here against Hudson with 2 down in the 5th, and rolls that one foul. That evens the count at 2-2. You were talking about Ryne Sandberg, your old teammate in your Cubs days together.
Look at that. The all-time home run list for second baseman. Our good buddy Joe Morgan. Possible Hall of Famer in Jeff Kent. And Chase Utley with a long way to go. Sandberg managing in AAA for the Chicago Cubs this year.
Saw that.
On his way back to the big leagues.
You think he has serious interest in a big league job?
There is no question. No question.
Which also brings up the question, and we can talk about this more tonight. Who's going to follow Bobby Cox in Atlanta? Bobby Cox said last September this will be the last season he manages anybody. He's going to be 69 in May.
Well, and he said it before the game too. We asked him when we did the interview, is this really it? And he goes, this is it. I'm going to stay in the game of baseball. I'm going to do a lot of things. The one name I hear all around the clubhouse is the former Braves third base coach, Freddie Gonzalez.
Now the manager of the Florida Marlins.
I mean, you think about it, he lives in this area. He's managed or coached a lot of these players. He, you know what? He's proven he can win down there in Florida.
2-2 on the way. Again, hammered foul. Just had a shot there, Frank Wren. Frank's a great baseball guy and former assistant general manager to David Dombrowski in Florida. So he knows Freddie very, very well, and of course did here in Atlanta. And Freddie was the third base coach. Executive VP and GM, and of course John Sherholtz, I think should go to the Hall of Fame without question as well.
I agree. I think it'll be a lot like what happened when Tom Kelly left Minnesota. Ron Gardenhire took over, but Tom Kelly didn't go away.
Right. It's worked out really well in Minnesota. 2-2 outside and a full count, so Utley has worked it to 3-2. Ryan Howard on deck, and Hudson doesn't want to face him with a man on, so Utley ought to get a good ball to swing at here, especially the way Howard has just carved up Hudson. Here's the 8th pitch of this at bat, and he grounds it to short. Escobar gets him. So Hudson had to work extra hard on Utley, but he does have a 1-2-3 5th inning. We're halfway through in Atlanta. The Phillies on top 1-0. Welcome back to Wednesday Night Baseball, presented by Captain Morgan. And from Atlanta and Turner Field, it's the Phillies and the Braves on to the bottom of the 5th inning. Rick Sutcliffe, former National League Cy Young Award winner, and Dave O'Brien, who once finished second in a spelling bee. Phillies with 4 hits and the Braves with 1. But Troy Gloss believes he should have had a home run, and he's right. Back in the 2nd inning on a high deep drive to center field, and Shane Victorino, timing his leap to perfection, went up there and stole it.
And just the fact that he got there, I mean, he took the absolute perfect route. This ball was crushed. You can't, I mean, there aren't many other ballparks where you hit it that far, it's not gone.
Lost 4-time All-Star, played in only 14 games for the St. Louis Cardinals last year.
The voice of the World Cup, the last World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, you forget about that spelling bee, buddy. Huh?
Another one lined right in the direction of Victorino. He'll snatch this one. Not nearly as challenging. But one man out, and here comes Jason Hayward, who struck out in the second inning in his first encounter with the great Roy Halladay.
Number 22, Jason Hayward.
Well, they love him. And they should. And they're going to learn to love him even more.
They'll take one high for ball one. 6 feet 5 inches, 240 pounds, all of 20 years old.
We were walking around the ballpark yesterday, went by one of the concession stands and souvenirs, and they were telling us that opening day when he hit that home run, they couldn't put his jerseys out until the 5th inning, until it had become an official ball game. And by the end of the game, there weren't any left to buy. They were all gone. And I mean, a lot of people that were sitting in the ballpark went to get the jersey, and it took them like 45 minutes to get back. But they weren't leaving this ballpark without one.
His first major league plate appearance. Broken bat up the middle. A stab by Castro off balance. And got him at first base. What a play. What a play. Castro with an outstanding effort. Off balance, sailing across the diamond, skipped it, and Howard hauled it in, and Hayward is denied.
Right when you think about Jimmy Rollins, he's won the last 3 Gold Gloves playing shortstop for the Phillies. This is an outstanding play all the way around. And I mean, Castro can make plays like this, but I don't think in the past that Ryan Howard could have come up with that throw or been able to keep his foot on the bag. An outstanding play all the way around, robbing Jason Hayward of a hit.
Good call by Ted Barrett. Here's a chopper to the right side, and Utley will handle this chance. The Phillies have posted a .988 fielding percentage, as second best in the National League. And they have Roy Halladay along with Castro, and now Howard picking it, and Victorino stealing home runs.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball, presented by Captain Morgan, is brought to you by Lowe's. Experience. Lowe's. Let's build something together.
Turner Field all lit up on a beautiful Wednesday night. Where it is 1-0 Phillies. They got that run in the second inning after Worth doubled and Ibanez doubled him in, and that's been it. Hudson has settled down the last couple of innings. He's retired 8 in a row, and now it's Howard, who has grounded out to first and been intentionally walked already. That was in the 3rd inning, and that strategy worked.
Well, it did, but in fact, Ryan Howard was the last guy to reach base off of Tim Hudson. He was able to get the ball down. He got a ground ball from Raul Ibanez, and not one ball has left the infield since.
Well, one hits the outside corner. Howard didn't think it was a strike, but the count 0-2.
I didn't think it did either. I think that Tony Randazzo lost his perfect game right there, but he has been really good tonight.
Howard has only struck out 8 times to this point in the season. 1-2. And he's also hit in 8 consecutive games against Atlanta. He dominated the Braves last year. .338, 8 homers, 16 RBIs in 68 at-bats. Bobby Cox says we're going to be very careful with him. And there's a little looper. And that beats the shift. A base hit into left field. An excuse me check swing, and Howard will take it. He's on here in the top of the 6th inning as we get back to the studio for an update, and Cindy Brunson.
Thanks, Dave. Checking back in at the Fens. Rangers, Red Sox, bottom 4. Darnell McDonald, his 2nd home run in as many days. The 3rd homer on the night for Boston. Red Sox are up 6-4, top 5. Sure, they'll be talking about that McDonald character on Baseball Tonight after you guys are done. Fellas, back to you.
Well, that's an incredible story, Cindy. 31 years old, bouncing around, playing most of his career in the minor leagues, couple of cups of coffee in the big leagues, and on consecutive nights at Fenway Park, he homers. There's some story. Here's Jason Worth. He's doubled and struck out and fouls it away for a strike.
There's a lot of stories coming out of Fenway these days. Big Papi being pinch hit for last night, I saw on Baseball Tonight.
And nobody can remember in recent years anyway. Maybe you have to go back to 2003 when he came over to Minnesota in the trade. The last time he was pinch hit for.
That's the sign of a changing of the guard.
Mike Lowell hitting for him in a clutch spot last night. That one's drilled into left center field. A gapper onto the grass and up against the wall. Here comes Howard into third. They're going to wave him in. He's trying to score. The throw home, and he slides in safe. Down to third, diving in is Worth. As the throw got away, and the Phillies take a 2-0 lead. And it's Jason Worth striking again.
How about the new and improved Ryan Howard in the many different ways? We've seen him play terrific defense tonight, and here's a ball that was hit in the gap with nobody out. There's no way that you're going to try to send him. Sam Perlazzo, the third base coach, could not have taken that chance in the past, but he's lost 20 pounds. He's in better shape, and all of a sudden now he's looking to score that run, picking up an RBI for Jason Worth, and also allowing Jason an opportunity to get to third.
Ibanez will be intentionally walked here. He already has an RBI double tonight. Worth just came up with his second two-bagger, and that doubles the Philly lead here in the 6th inning. Is that enough for Mr. Halladay?
Well, we know that it's spelling the end of the night for Tim Hudson. We mentioned he may not get his second at bat. He's not. If he gets through this inning, there's no question now with 2 runs, Bobby Cox will have to hit for him.
And the injured Jimmy Rollins contributing on the bench as an additional hitting instructor. Last year on a Wednesday night, we saw him do great work with Ibanez, and he helped Coach Ibanez into a home run at Wrigley Field
when Ibanez was really struggling. Yeah.
Well, Ibanez taking the intentional pass. Juan Castro now. He's gone 1 for 2. He's also made a tremendous defensive play. Of course, he's the man filling in for Rollins temporarily. Nobody out. First and third for Philadelphia. The infield in for Atlanta. Hit hard. Backhanded by Escobar. Coming home. The tag, and he's out at home. Worth is cut down. Well, he sent him. That was the gamble, forcing Escobar to make a perfect throw, and he did.
Well, they didn't know if the Atlanta Braves would try to go for the double play or not after the intentional pass. They put the contact play on, knowing that Jason Worth has great speed. He's a big man. He gets down the line in a hurry. You put a lot of pressure on the middle infielder here. Escobar's got to catch it, come up with a quick throw. McCann had to dig it out of the dirt and then apply the tag right there on Jason Worth just in time to keep this at 2-0.
I made that a perfect throw. It certainly wasn't. It was a great play by McCann on the skip to dig that one out. So here comes Ruiz with runners at first and second. Phillies continue to play sparkling defense on their side, but Atlanta coming up with a fine play there.
Well, they have. Great throw a couple of times on the part of Hayward. A sliding catch on the part of Nate McLeod in center. That's a great play all the way around. Escobar did all he could do.
1-0 pitch, and that one tapped foul back to the netting. 1 ball and 1 strike on Ruiz. He's flying to right and grounded back to Hudson. Well, 100 pitches now for the right-hander. He has allowed 6 hits. 2 earned runs, 2 walks.
He struck out a guy in every inning tonight, as opposed to his last start, OB, when he got into the 6th inning and didn't record 1 strikeout.
Hudson looking for a double play ball here. 2-1. Now, if you're opposing Roy Halladay any night he pitches, it's a game of how many, if we get behind, how many is too much? At what point is the game effectively over? There's Halladay, such a workhorse up the middle. Prado flips it into second base and gets the out there. They'll be safely on at the corners as Ruiz becomes the runner at first base. So 2 down. Major League Baseball and People magazine are looking for individuals who make a difference in their community. 30 everyday All-Stars will be honored at the 2010 All-Star Game in Anaheim. And to nominate, go to peopleallstars.com.
That was the All-Stars Among Us a year ago, which, you know, there's some All-Stars out there in the field here, but there's thousands of them in each and every one of our communities, and that was a wonderful tribute. That was a great thing to experience.
You can nominate anybody, you can nominate yourself. Well, the Phillies just 2 for 10 with men in scoring position. That more than anything is keeping this game close, as Roger McDowell, the Atlanta pitching coach, had a quick word with Hudson.
Well, McDowell had to come out after the way you built up Roy Halladay as a hitter. We need to talk about this. Roy's wife Brandy is going to kill me when this is over with.
Halladay batting again. He has struck out twice. It's not his regular gig.
Not yet.
Yeah. He puts it in play. A little topper. Here comes Escobar and gets it. But another run comes in to score in support of Mr. Halladay. It is now 2-0 Philadelphia as we play on a Wednesday night in Atlanta. Now Roy Halladay grounding out to end the inning, and now has to go back out there and pitch.
Well, OB, I was talking with ESPN News before the ball game, promoting our ball game, and we were talking about what's the big difference between switching from the American League to the National League. This is one thing right here. Now you say, well, it's only 90 feet, you know, but it's something that's out of the sorts. Roy Halladay has never done that before this year. All of a sudden now, rather than sitting on the bench and mentally getting prepared to face the first hitter, you're up there trying to drive in a run. The next thing you go, it starts to speed up on you a little bit, and from time to time, a guy will get caught not being prepared for the first guy.
Of course, a couple of things working in Halladay's favor, you would think. He's only thrown 56 pitches, and his conditioning is off the charts.
Oh, like none other.
Here's Melky Cabrera taking one high for ball 1.
You wonder. I mean, ball 1, first of all, he hadn't been doing that, and he hasn't been doing anything above the belt as he did there.
Fouled back, 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, after Melky was traded to Atlanta by the Yankees in December, he must have thought the baseball gods were just flat messing with him. A week before, Halladay had come to the Phillies inside the same division again, so he can't escape him. And he is 8 for 40 in his career against the 6'6" right-hander.
I didn't understand that trade. I mean, to me, Vasquez was their best pitcher last year. And if you're trying to contend, well, why are you moving him? And it just didn't make sense. But Hayward has made up a lot of that ground.
Foul back to the screen. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Cabrera hit .274 last season for the world champions. Only hit .154 in the World Series against Philadelphia. And now facing them on a regular basis during the regular season. He pokes that one a liner into left field for a base hit. Kind of a lunging cut. But he becomes the second base runner tonight for Atlanta.
Let's take a look at part of the reason Roy Halladay has been so overpowering up to this point tonight. There's a sinking fastball catching the inside corner, a cut fastball to the right-handed hitter. Roy Halladay tonight has had a strikeout in each of the first 4 innings to end the inning. Couple of innings, of course, he's had 2 strikes out. The last inning in the bottom of the 5th was the first inning. He did not record 1.
Our K-Zone brought to you by Denny's. Now pinch hitter will be brought up for Tim Hudson. It'll be Brooks Conrad, and he'll get in on the left side here. Hitting 167 for the season with a double. He swings at the first pitch and pops it up. And Ruiz is there to tap the mitt. Plenty of room to make the catch. So Conrad, not even thinking about working the count, immediately swings and makes a fast out.
You know, I can't fault him for that, though. He comes up there off the bench as the tying run. And he's a guy that throughout his minor league career, he could hit for some power. I mean, he was a 20 home run type guy. And you know that the blood pressure is going to be up a little bit. You're going to be a little bit excited. And, you know, I mean, he didn't square it up, but very few people have tonight. But he was trying to.
Well, here's Nate McLeod. Swings at a high deep drive. That one way back there. Victorino, though, with room to make the catch. And McLeod, who had homered last night to win the ball game in the 10th inning, comes up a little bit short, but this might go to your point. Halliday's allowed a base hit. May have gotten a little fortunate with an over-eager Conrad, and now this deep drive.
And I think right there to begin with, Nate McLeod thought he got that. That ball not even getting to the warning track. I know that Troy Glaus thought he hit his ball out of the ballpark. It makes me think of Chipper Jones and all the home runs that he has hit here in these difficult hitting conditions.
Well, both of those, the gloss drive that Victorino caught to steal a home run in this one, they were hit. McLeod really got around on that.
I'm telling you, running down the bases had something to do with this inning. Roy Halladay, he keeps the ball out of the air as good as anybody in baseball. And all three guys this inning have been able to put a grass stain on.
Well, a hot hitter here in Prado. Bounding ball to third. Polanco very sure-handed, and that will do it. Well, if that's the rough spot in the road for Halladay,
yeah.
Goodness gracious. Phillies leading it 2-0. Welcome back to Wednesday Night Baseball, presented by Captain Morgan. Well, the Phillies have just tacked on another run. They lead it 2-0 as we proceed to the 7th inning. 6 hits for Philadelphia, and Atlanta held to 2. Johnny Venters coming out of the bullpen, a left-handed rookie who really surprised everybody in spring training in a positive way, and opened a lot of eyes and made the ball club.
Certainly did. It took him a while to get there. Back in 03, he was a 30th round draft pick. 6'3", almost 200 pounds. He's got an exploding sinker that they're hoping will work here.
Out of Pikeville, Kentucky. Missed all of 06 because of Tommy John surgery. So that delayed his approach to the major leagues.
It's almost like every other pitcher that you look up in the media guide, you see the name Tommy John.
High fly down the left field line. On the move, Cabrera. Does he have enough room near the stands? Leaps, and he made the catch. That's a fine play by Melky Cabrera. Up against those stands in foul territory, and Victorino, who already tonight has robbed Atlanta of a homer, is robbed of an at-bat.
You know, he's still not familiar. This is not his home ballpark. He's used to playing center field at Yankee Stadium. That really was a nice play. You've got the crowd helping you a little bit, but you'd love to get that leadoff man out, and Melky Cabrera just helped you do that.
That brings up Polanco, who's gone 0 for 2 and has been hit by a pitch. Well, now they're going to pinch hit for him. It's going to be Wilson Valdez batting for Polanco, and in there for a strike.
You know what happened when he got drilled in the elbow in his first at bat? You called it. It was a great call. You heard him yell. I mean, that thing started to swell up, and at this point right now, he's gone 0 for 2. He's not got the ball out of the infield. He's just not able to swing the bat anymore, that being Polanco.
So Manuel has to go to his bench here. It's waved at and missed by Valdez. Utley on deck. Tim Hudson went the first 6 innings for Bobby Cox, giving up 2 runs, 6 hits. Hudson himself recovering from Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago, and had looked strong in 2 starts. Didn't pitch badly by any means tonight, certainly against this lineup.
Well, he gave him a chance to win. You know, and when he got into some tough spots, that seemed to be when he got better.
To the shortstop, it got by the pitcher. Escobar will sling it over, dug out by Gloss. As we go back to the studio, it's update time, and here's Cindy Brunson.
Thanks so much, Dave. This Baseball Tonight update presented by Lowe's. Cubs, Mets. New York looking to win a 3rd straight. Top 4 with 1 aboard. Giovanni Soto drives in Alfonso Soriano. Soto, though, out trying to stretch the hit into a double. Chicago is up 2-1 in the top of the 5th at Citi Field. Guys, back to you.
Cindy, thank you very much. We just got the update on Placido Polanco. Indeed, he left the game with that left elbow contusion suffered when he was drilled by a pitch way back in the 1st inning from Tim Hudson.
That could be a while if he comes out of the ball game.
Of course, they're already down a man in Rollins.
Take a look at this. Just look at the last at bat for Chase Utley. Watch this. He gets fooled. That's a terrible swing. He knows it, but look at that. Look at that effort every single time he goes down that line. You've seen guys take that same kind of swing where they didn't even want to run, didn't even hardly run. You will not see that out of this guy.
It's not allowed in Philadelphia.
He won't allow.
Yeah, that's
true. He won't
of him.
allow any of his teammates to respond like that. You know, he's another guy that gets hit quite a bit.
They two trying to hold up. They do appeal, but Paul Nauert says no swing. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out, bases empty in the 7th inning.
Tell you what, Bobby Cox found him a left-hander. Venters looks really good right now. I mean, he completely fooled Chase Utley on the first 3 pitches.
2-2.
There's that sinker. That's the thing about Utley, though. He's not going to give. He gets right on top of the plate, and you want to hit me, I'll be glad to head down to first base and let Ryan Howard try to drive me in.
And Jam there fouled it off himself. Still 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ryan Howard to hit next. Now the Phillies this season. Hitting .348 when ahead in the count. Which you would expect with good hitters. That ranks 11th in the National League.
Almost looks like you want the count even. You don't want to get behind either. They're hitting almost .280.
That just missed. Venters thought he had one there. 3-2.
Well, Brian McCann very seldom will hold the ball there as if to say that you missed the location. Well, he missed the glove where it's set up. But as far as our K zone was concerned and Brian McCann was concerned, that was strike 3.
Here's the payoff pitch, and that will be strike 3. And no argument from Utley. So Venters very impressive. Gets a 1-2-3. It'll be 3, 4, and 5 for Atlanta, trying to get on the scoreboard. Getting late against Halladay. MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Get over 100 live out-of-market games per week in HD quality. We're available on your computer. Visit MLB.TV for details. Roy Halladay entering the 7th with only 66 pitches. Line drive into center, and Victorino has to play it on a bounce. Chipper Jones has his 2nd hit of the ball game. He is now 2 for 3, and Atlanta only has 3 hits.
Chipper has not only put up a lot of big offensive numbers in his career, but he's been able to do it against baseball's very best. Going to the opposite field or right up the middle, that's been his approach all night against Roy Halladay. Ever since he struck out in the first at bat, he's picked up the 2 of the 3 hits that the Braves have.
Look at our K-Zone brought to you by Denny's there. Here's McCann swinging a ground ball, base hit. Utley with a dime and a miss. Jones into 2nd. And here come the Braves. Back-to-back hits for the first time tonight.
You get so spoiled with Roy Halladay. Going 8 innings is what he's averaged every single start thus far this year, that you just kind of sit back and watch. But if you've watched what's going on the last couple of innings, he didn't get a strikeout in the bottom of the 5th. And then after hustling down the base paths in the top of the 6th, ran into a little bit of trouble. Gave up a base hit to Milky. Some balls were hit in the air. And immediately here in the 7th, the first 2 guys reach base.
Well, now Halladay, working from the stretch, has to face a guy in Troy Gloss who twice has hit the ball very hard tonight. He had a home run stolen by Victorino in the 2nd and lined out to center field in the 5th. And he takes ball 1. Gloss coming into tonight was 4 for 11 off of Halladay with a home run.
He's had a better night offensively than Chipper, but so far has nothing to show for it.
Nobody out. Pounded in for a strike. Back to that catch in the 2nd inning.
Boy, he thought he got it. Hit this ball to the deepest part of the ballpark. And I don't even think Victorino, when he first went up, I think when he came down, I don't think he was sure he had it until he was able to look into the glove and see the baseball there. What a play.
Great timing. Jones at 2nd, McCann at 1st. Foul tipped off the catcher. And Halladay's in front in the count on Gloss.
You mentioned the conditioning of Roy Halladay, and that's where right now it becomes so important. I've been around him a lot. I've seen him. I mean, you think of guys like Trevor Hoffman, Cal Ripken. He's in that same class as far as preparation.
Nobody throwing in the Philly pen. The 1-2. Got him. He struck him out. Gloss, for the first time tonight, fails to hit it right on the button.
He pounded him on the inside corner with that sinking fastball. And then, as we showed earlier on Winning Baseball, comes right back with the same release point, but he goes with the other finger pressure, getting the ball to cut away from Troy Glaus, picking up a much-needed out.
But a buzz rippling through Turner Field now because Jason Hayward 0 for 2 tonight. But with a flair for the dramatic, steps in, and he looks at strike one.
The J. Hay Kid is the nickname that we heard around the ballpark last night.
The 0-1 wouldn't chase it. 2 on, 1 out.
He doesn't usually do anything till the 9th inning, I didn't think.
That missed. 2 balls, 1 strike.
That's some of the patience that Chipper was talking about and how rare it is to see in a guy Jason Hayward's age.
Halladay's 2-1 and too far inside. And now a hitter's count for the young star. A slew of big hits. Oh, so early in his career already. The 3-1. Cut on and missed.
Not going to give in. There's no way. Roy Halladay's been reading the newspapers. He saw the ball game last night. He respects the power of this kid, even though he's only got a couple of weeks in the big leagues. That good, hard cut fastball there. Now Roy Halladay, he doesn't want to strike out. He wants a ground ball double play out.
He walks him instead, and the bases are loaded for Atlanta. 2 singles and a ball 4, and only 1 man out. Time to take a look at who's been in the clutch, brought to you by Gillette. And certainly it has been young Mr. Hayward. When he's in scoring position, you see what he's done at 7:27 last night at the bottom of the 9th with 2 men out, tying the game with a home run. Brave at every base. Chipper Jones at 3rd. McCann at 2nd. Hayward now at 1st. And the hitter is Yunel Escobar. He's been a pretty reliable RBI man the last couple of years for Atlanta. He drove in 76 last year. Strike 1.
I think unlike Jason Hayward, he doesn't have the plate discipline to not be aggressive right off the bat. Even though he's down in the count right now, to me, he's got to swing the bat. He's not going to be able to take a pitch like Hayward did for ball 4.
That's downstairs. 1 ball and 1 strike. Escobar with 8 RBIs on the season. Last 3 years, he's hit .326, .288, and .299. He tends to put the bat on the ball. A soft roller, but foul. 1-2.
You know, one thing too, thinking about that infield defense, not what it was when this game first began. Polanco had to come out of the game after being hit in that left elbow. You mentioned earlier that the Phillies were 2nd in the National League in team defense this year. They were a year ago.
Bases jammed, and a 1-2 from Halladay. 2-2. 2-0 Phillies. This by far the hardest that Halladay has had to work in any inning tonight.
Well, Halladay bringing his catcher out here because the opposing catcher's at second base, and I think Roy thought he threw a pitch that Escobar would have chased had he not had an idea where it might have been going or what it was. I mean, I'm not saying that they are giving pitches, but every team tries to do that. So you bring your catcher out and you change it up.
Here's the 2-2 to Escobar. He got jammed and he fought it off foul to the right. Escobar last year with men in scoring position, 373.
That's why he's one of those bright young players, and there's many of them in the game of baseball today.
Jones, McCann, and Hayward filling up the bases for the Braves. Trying to get to Roy Halladay. They've been trying all night. He retired the first 11 men he faced this evening before Chipper Jones doubled off him. And now Ruiz is back out of the crouch and heading to the mound.
I don't blame Carlos here. He's got to get this pitch right. He realizes he saw what the Braves did last night when the Phillies were up 3-0. They came back and won that ball game. He's trying to keep that from happening here.
The 2-2 up the middle, diving play. Utley to second, one on the first, double play. The Phillies have been sensational defensively. How about the stab by Utley up the middle? And Philadelphia turns 2 to get out of that bases loaded 1-out jam. Chase Utley got it out of the glove in time. 4-6-3, and Halladay holds in Atlanta. Well, as good as Halladay has been tonight, he's only allowed 4 hits. His defense has supported him with one A-plus play after another.
Well, and I think the pace of the game that he set by throwing strikes constantly has helped them as well.
Ryan Howard attacking the first pitch. He has gone 1 for 2 tonight with a single. Here's a look at that double play to end the inning with the bases loaded.
What a great diving catch by Utley. But then when Chase had trouble getting it out of his glove, Castro had to have some fancy footwork to be able to catch the bag and still be able to get the throw off on time. Take a look at here. He has a little trouble getting it out. He gets it out, but Castro kicks the bag after he was already past it, completing the double play.
Howard with a breaking ball in there for a strike. Venter still on and working after an impressive 7th inning. Jimmy Rollins working with Castro. Jimmy's got to find someone to talk to.
Yeah. He might be making another prediction, which we love.
Waved at and missed. An ugly looking swing by Howard. For him this season, that's a rare strikeout. Only the 9th time he has whiffed. One man gone in the 8th.
I tell you what, you think back to the World Series when the New York Yankees constantly threw left-handers at the Philadelphia Phillies and the way they struggled. That was not a real good swing nor at bat for Ryan Howard, which is rare for this year.
A couple of very good at bats tonight out of Jason Worth. He's ripped a pair of doubles, 1 for an RBI, and then he scored after reaching second base in the 2nd inning.
He's the difference in this ball game. He's the only offense. He scored 1 run and drove in the other.
If you look at Worth's 2 World Series the last 2 years, his combined numbers are pretty darn impressive. 351 in the October Classic, 3 homers, and 11 walks in 11 World Series games. And look at a ball there. The count goes to 3-0.
He's really starting to blossom, isn't he?
All the way around, yeah.
I mean, that's a great point, Obi. I mean, just watching him in the clubhouse, just
rattles that one to Escobar. He guns him down, 2 down. Update time. Here's the popular Cindy Brunson.
Thanks so much. Checking in on the Indians and Twins. AL Central leading Minnesota, looking to win a 5th straight series. Bottom 2 with 2 aboard. Denard Span, little 2-run single. Minnesota on top there, 3-0 in the bottom of the 4th. Checking in on the Dodgers and Reds, and a back and forth affair. The Dodgers are on top 6-4 and break up the Padres. San Diego staring down a 6th straight win. Guys, back to you.
Cindy, thank you very much. Raul Ibanez will dig in here after 2 fast outs in the top of the 8th for the Phillies. He has doubled, grounded to short, and been intentionally walked tonight.
You notice the Padres have won 5 straight ball games.
Your Padres are on fire.
Well, it's Bud Black, and their pitching coach Darren Balsley is as good as they get, as they say in baseball. I mean, Jake Peavy leaves, and Darren Balsley, the next thing you know, he's got people throwing strikes, and they were one of the better teams in baseball the last 5-6 weeks of the season, and off to another good start.
Well, they are tied with the Giants for first place in the NL West going into play tonight. 2-0 Philadelphia. Top half of the 8th inning. Rick Sutcliffe, Dave O'Brien with you, and Roy Halladay, as he always is, every 5 days is a major part of the story.
Well, and he seems to be out there for the 8th and 9th inning every 5th day.
Got the jacket only over that pitching shoulder. Indication he's heading back out there. 3-0 in his first 3 starts. He's never won his first 4 starts of a season. A strike. He's only thrown 84 pitches, Rick.
Well, he didn't really have to rear back and put any kind of intensity into anything until that last inning. And boy, did Chase Utley come up with a big play for him.
Enters with a 3-2 pitch, a half swing, and that one chopped up the middle. Throw to first base in time to get him by Prado. And they go 1-2-3 off the misdirection. 84 pitches, and Halladay back to the hill as we take you to the bottom of the 8th on a Wednesday night. The Atlanta Braves starting to run out of chances here at home against Roy Halladay. It is 2-0 Philadelphia. And the Phillies ace has allowed only 4 hits. One of those to this man, Melky Cabrera, thought about a bunt, but takes a ball. He's gone 1 for 2 with a single, and he's grounded to short. And it looks like Eric Hinsky has grabbed the bat. He's come to the on-deck area, and Bobby Cox will use him as a pinch hitter in the 9 spot. The 2-0. Cabrera again bluffs a bunt, looks at a strike.
How about the uniform of Chase Utley?
Absolutely filthy.
Pretty much an every night occurrence, is it not? That's a difference in the game tonight right there.
He'll get a chance here, and a high hopper right at him. 1 man out.
I think the pitchers deserve some of the credit tonight for some of the great defense. They've set the pace. They've thrown strikes. I mean, Victorino, that was the play of the night, I thought, until all of a sudden you see the tag at home on Jason Worth. Cabrera going down the line into the stand. But the play of the night easily has to be Chase Utley. I mean, Victorino's going to win the Webb Gym. He saved a run. It was a homer, but Utley saved at least 2.
And they have been superb defensively. The trademark of this Philadelphia team, a .988 fielding percentage.
Last year they only allowed 36 unearned runs all year long. That led the majors. They'll probably do it again. Tonight they're doing it without the left side of their normal infield. Jimmy Rollins on the DL with the calf. Polanco out.
Polanco drilled by a pitch on the elbow tonight, suffering a contusion, although he played several innings after that. Valdez taking over for him at third base.
How about the good luck charm here at home plate? Eric Hinsky.
Now you're going to go to the playoffs and go deep. He bloops this one. That's going to drop down for a hit. That's going to roll into foul ground. He's got himself a double. Didn't hit it very far, but he hit it in a perfect spot along that line.
Well, you know
the
what?
Human horseshoe.
Exactly. Over the last few years, he's not gotten a lot of hits, but all 3 years he's found himself in the World Series, trying to do it again for the 4th time as a member of the Atlanta Braves. Hits are hard to come by. Being able to hit the ball hard, even tougher than that off Roy Halladay. But he knows it's got a chance. He puts the head down. He's not running very fast, but he's running hard.
Hinsky played for the Red Sox in 2007, got a ring there. 2008 played for Tampa Bay against the Phillies and got an American League Championship ring, as that one will miss for ball 1 to McLeod. And then last year he was with the Yankees. In fact, got into 1 game as a member of the Yankees in the 09 World Series against the Fightin' Phils.
Well, we'll remember one at bat when he was with Tampa, which was the last one. in which he struck out facing Brad Lidge, and that big celebration ensued.
On at second base with a bloop double. McLouth 0 for 3. Looks at a strike, 2-1.
I can't remember another time tonight that Roy Halladay fell behind 2-0 on anybody. So you've got to be a little bit concerned right now. It's just
the 2-1 pitch. He won't swing, and now 3-1.
You don't have Romero in the bullpen. Brad Lidge is not there. Madsen gave it up last night. So, I mean, when Charlie Manuel thinks about his options, you know that Roy Halladay's got to be fatigued a little bit. But Roy at 75, 80%, it's probably better than anything else he's got down there.
Well, and he is Mr. Complete Game. Back to the studio. Here's Cindy Brunson.
Thanks, Dave. Checking back in on the Cubs and the Mets. Alfonso Soriano top 5 with 1 aboard. That'll score a run. Cubs up 3-1 in the bottom of the 6th. Rangers and the Red Sox still battling at the Fens. Boston still on top there. And Rays and White Sox. Tampa Bay all over Mark Burley in his first start against the Rays since his perfect game last July. Guys, back to you.
Tampa Bay with Longoria delivering. And they are off to a best start ever there. Well, here's Prado. He's gone 0 for 3. He's grounded to third twice and been caught looking on a third strike. Hinske at third base as Halladay tries to preserve his shutout bid here in the bottom of the 8th inning in Atlanta.
You know, for me, no matter what happens in this ball game tonight, for the Atlanta Braves, when you think about Bobby Cox, when you play the Phillies, you know where you stack up. You know where you're at. And Bobby Cox has said many times, after 40 games, you know where you're at and what you need, if you have any needs. After last night's ball game and tonight, I know it takes them a while to score, but you know what? They've got an opportunity. They can pitch with the Phillies now. I look for the Braves to be there all year long.
Well, the time with them in first place in the NL East right now. This will be the 100th pitch, incidentally, for Halladay. And it is high. 2 balls, 1 strike. Prado started the night hitting .431 with a home run. So he's been cooking in the early going. Here's the 2-1. On the infield. Castro with an easy play and gets him. Halladay freezes that runner. Hinske at third base. Atlanta again fails to score. Phillies 2, Atlanta nothing, going to the 9th.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is presented by Captain Morgan. There are captains in every crew. Calling all captains. Drink responsibly. And in part by Audi, Truth in Engineering. And Denny's 2-4-6-8 value menu. Try 16 different value meals all day, every day.
On Wednesday Night Baseball, we move to the 9th inning. Rick Sutcliffe, Dave O'Brien alongside. 2-0 Phillies. And Juan Castro swings at the very first pitch from Takashi Saito, and he pops it into center. Nate McLouth will make that catch. And Castro is 1 for 4. Saito, the 39-year-old from Japan, pitched last year with the Red Sox and the previous 3 seasons with the LA Dodgers.
You know, he's been in the postseason 3 out of the last 4 years. He was an all-star a couple of years ago. Everybody thought he was done when he left Los Angeles. The Dodgers were concerned with his elbow. Got it back together last year with Boston, and the Braves love what they've seen.
Well, put up a 2.43 ERA in 56 appearances in the American League last year. And drills in a strike on Ruiz, who's gone 0 for 3. And Roy Halladay is on deck, getting ready to hit for himself. There's absolutely nothing happening in the Philly bullpen.
There's normally not with that man.
Halladay, the last 2 years in the American League East, mind you, throwing a combined 18 complete games. Might be a night off for the pen. We shall see.
And you know, you just think about that, how
rocketed into left field. That one heading for the corner, and on one big bounce it caroms off the wall. Ruiz heading into second base, and he's got himself a double.
Let's do something that we do every week on Wednesday nights. Let's take our weekly walk in the park. There's Hank Aaron. I would have wanted nothing to do with that. You see the smile, and that's the first thing you think of. The Braves Museum, which is open year-round, this is actually a boxcar and what the players in the past used to travel in. Boy, things have changed a lot there. And, of course, the bat, the ball, and the jersey that Hank Aaron hit home run number 715 with. Yeah, that's right, 1995. That's the World Series trophy for the Atlanta Braves.
755 club. I believe you dined there.
It was outstanding. This whole facility is tremendous.
Well, here comes Halladay. And fouls that one off the catcher for strike one. He's gone 0 for 3, but on the hill, he is tossing a shutout for the Phillies. So batting for himself and hitting .214. Does have an RBI.
You know, you get to this point as a pitcher, you know Saito's normally not going to walk you. You just want to make contact. You never know what's going to happen. You just try to put the ball in play any way that you can. And of course, I mean, for Roy to have been in the American League as long as he has and not had that many at bats, it's going to take a while.
Well, in the American League, at this time in the 9th inning, he'd be sitting going over the hitters that he would be about to face in the bottom of the 9th inning. In this case, it's going to be a big three in Chipper Jones, Brian McCann, and Troy Gloss. That's 3, 4, and 5 for the Braves.
It kind of reminds me a lot of Jason Hayward out there in right field with Roy Halladay. You've got an athlete who's got a lot of ability, and he has the intelligence to figure something out. Roy will be a better hitter before this year is over with.
Ruiz at second after his double and put in play toward the middle, getting in front of it. Prado, that does advance the runner, showing that he's learning in tonight's game alone. Let's get back to the studio for an update. Here's Cindy.
Thanks so much, Dave. Checking back in at the Fens. Rangers, Red Sox, top 7. Josh Hamilton taking Josh Beckett for a ride. Hamilton with his first home run of the season. It's the equalizer. We're tied at 7 in the bottom of the 7th inning. Some storylines that the fellas will be talking about on baseball tonight. Beckett, 7 innings, 5 walks, and that 1 home run. Zach Greinke, 7 strong, 2 earned in the Royals' 4-3 win. And Steven Strasburg in a 3-0 win in Double-A. All of that coming your way after your game on Baseball Tonight.
Cindy, thank you very much. A runner at third base in Ruiz, and here's Shane Victorino, has made a marvelous catch tonight to steal a home run from Troy Gloss very early in the contest. That was in the 2nd inning. At the plate, kind of quiet. He's gone 0 for 4. And Nate McLouth took a hit from him with a nice sliding catch in center field.
Milky Cabrera went into the stands to record the out in his last at bat.
In for a strike. 21,171 watching tonight at Turner Field.
Kind of thinking about Strasburg down there in the minor leagues makes me think of what the Braves did with Tommy Hanson a year ago. You leave a guy down there for long enough, he's not arbitration eligible, and you're able to control him for not only this year but 6 more after that. So there's a lot more that goes into that than just whether Strasburg was ready to play in the big leagues or not. The Braves decided that Jason Hayward was ready, and because of it, you know, it's already made a big difference in several ball games.
So much of it depends on an organization's purse strings.
But just thinking about all of the great young players that came along a year ago and how they just continue to come to Major League Baseball.
Hayward, such a bright young star on the Major League stage. That's in there for strike 3. Freezing Victorino. Well, it's not going to be a walk in the park for Roy Halladay. He has to face Chipper Jones, Brian McCann, and Troy Gloss. 2-0 Phillies. So here we go to the bottom half of the 9th inning in Atlanta at Turner Field. The Phillies still on top, 2-0. A single run in the 2nd inning, another run in the 6th. That's been all the scoring, and Halladay out there for the 9th, and he delivers low ball 1. He is tonight's value player, brought to you by Denny's. 8 outstanding innings, 1 walk, 7 Ks. However, Chipper Jones has 2 hits off him. A double and a single. He's 2 for 3. McCann next, and then Gloss. Fouled back and a good rip, 2-1.
Boy, for 14 years to reach the World Series, you had to go through Atlanta and Chipper Jones. But for the last 3 years to get there in the National League, you had to go through Philadelphia, and now you've got to get through Roy Halladay.
That missed away. 3 balls and 1 strike. Chipper's talked about this perhaps being the end. It depends what kind of a season he has. Says if I go out and produce and have the same kind of year I typically do, everything will be fine. But Nate, make no bones about it, there's certain parts of this lifestyle I'm sick of. He said, I'm sick of living out of a suitcase for 20 years. He fouls that one off to the left. 3-2.
Well, and he means it. Chipper Jones does not and never has played this game for money. He's got a big contract. Everybody knows that. But he expects a lot out of himself. And the biggest thing I think for him is to stay healthy. He's already had to miss some games because of another oblique strain.
3-2. Down to the right side toward the hole. Diving play by Howard. Sideways flip and got the out. Another outstanding play by the Phillies. And it's Howard with a terrific dive to steal a hit from Chipper.
A lot of people think that there's a couple of times where Ryan Howard lost MVP votes because he wasn't able to play defense. Now, not only he was guarding the line right there. Look how deep he is. But look at the soft hands. He comes up with it. And then the perfect feed to Halladay up high where he can see it. He grabs the baseball. He grabs the bag. And that is huge because more than anything, it keeps a tying run from coming to home plate.
Well, they've gotten brilliant defense behind Halladay. Out of Castro, the shortstop, Utley, the second baseman, Howard, and Victorino, as that one is outside on McCann. He's gone 1 for 3.
A good lesson for young pitchers tonight. When you work quick and you throw strikes, people are going to play better behind you.
A strike called, 1-1.
Field your position. Make good throws to bases. And you see it all the way around. Everybody right now is on their toes, expecting that ball to be put in play at them.
It's been a highlight reel for the Phillies with the gloves tonight. Here's the 1-1. Breaking ball hammered, scooped up by Howard. He'll take it himself, and that is out number 2.
We could put together a highlight reel on defense for the Phillies just on Ryan Howard tonight. Take a look there. Victorino up and over. Castro replacing Jimmy Rollins. Castro turned the double play on the great play by Chase Utley. The emotion on the part of Roy Halladay. There, the diving stop here in the 9th inning. That last ball was a rocket, and Ryan Howard came up with it easily.
Last chance for Atlanta. Here's Gloss. Well, it really started this series of great defensive plays by the Phillies when Gloss was robbed of the home run by Victorino way back in the 2nd inning. When he went high up against the wall. In for a strike, 1-1. And one has followed the next. Hayward in the on-deck area. And still, if Gloss gets on, Hayward comes up representing the tying run. That one chopped toward third. Here comes Valdez throwing on the move, and he got him. And that's an appropriate end to the ball game. Valdez, the fill-in third baseman, with the final play, and Halladay defeats McCann in Atlanta with a dandy of a performance, a complete game 2-0 shutout.
Well, Roy Halladay has said that the 09 postseason was harder to watch than usual for him. A lot of that because his former teammate A.J. Burnett was out there, and Roy Halladay had never been there. He's doing everything he can by, for the first time in his career, going 4-0 to get to that postseason.
Well, off to a tremendous start with his brand new team, the new ace of the Phillies. He has been as advertised, and Hayward is left in the on-deck area. 2-0 the final. Halladay now 4-0. Hudson takes the loss. He's 1-1. Stay tuned for baseball tonight. For Rick Sutcliffe, I'm Dave O'Brien saying good night from Atlanta, Georgia. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. The Phillies behind Halladay win it 2-0. Now we go to baseball tonight.